recognize myself. It's funny how reflections.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm the Reverend Peter Ackerman. I'm the rector here at Episcopal Church of St. John the Baptist, which we call St. John's. It's a lot easier. Welcome. I'm glad that those who are here tonight are coming. Please come and sit down. Those in the back, you're welcome to sit. We welcome also those who are watching from home. What we're doing tonight is part 2 of 3 on this work on homelessness in our area. And this is brought to you by Episcopal Church of St. John the Baptist and the Lodi Committee on Homelessness and the Lodi Improvement Committee. And again, all of us are delighted that you are here. I'd like to always begin us with prayer, acknowledging that I understand there are people from different faiths and there are people who are agnostic and atheist here. So if you will join me, and if you do pray to a higher power, who I will refer to as God, we'll do that right now. Let us pray. Gracious God, I thank you for this evening, and I thank you for the people who have gathered. Continue to breathe into us the wind we need from your Spirit to help us to understand how to serve others, the least in our midst at times. Bless us tonight. Bless those who have come with their ways of reaching the least of these. And help us to have spoken tonight what needs to be spoken and heard tonight what needs to be heard so that we can continue to serve. This I pray for in your name. Amen. Thanks again, friends. Karen Siddle, Catherine. Sorry. There was a Karen I know who I was just talking to. So.
So thank you so much for coming back. Really appreciate everyone coming out again. So this is session 2 titled, Where Do We Go From Here? We received a lot of your questions and I've got them lined up and we've shared them all out. We're trying to address them all, as many as possible, and we're open to more questions tonight. So there'll be, there's cards available. We want to hear from you. But we're going to talk about where are we at, where we're going to go, what we can do. How can we make a difference? That was a prominent question that we got a lot. What can we do? So we're going to get started with that. And from that, I am going to introduce, Deacon Tom.
Good evening, friends, and welcome. So glad that you're here. So, when you've encountered a homeless person in the last week or 2 or 3, what was it that occurred to you when you looked at that person? What kinds of assumptions did you make about who they were, why they were in that situation? How did you interpret what you were seeing and that person's struggle? Now, I ask that question because, we approach everything with a certain filter, a way of understanding the world. And sometimes those filters are helpful. Sometimes those filters can get in the way. So I'd like you to just consider ways in which the assumptions that you bring to your encounter with a homeless person might actually obstruct your ability to really understand that person and what you're seeing. Does that question make sense? So then what I'd invite you to do in pairs is just share a little bit of what those assumptions are and how they might get in the way. We'll take about 2 minutes for each of you, and then there'll be one more task. So find somebody to share with, just one preferably, for the sake of time. I'll call you together in a couple of minutes.
really get the melody ready. It's good.
So if you have not traded off, I'd invite you, the person who's been listening, to share what they were thinking about. You've got 2 more minutes.
Touch bases with John.
Okay. So when you think about those questions of perception, you know, other questions may have arisen in your conversation. And we invite you now, you all received a little 3x5 card. If there's a question that arose in that conversation, or a question that you brought to I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you for letting me know that. A little louder? Okay. Okay, forceful, all right. So, if there's a question that you brought with you to this event that you'd like to have addressed, or a question that came up in your conversation that you hadn't thought of before, we'd invite you to write that one question, just one, on that 3x5 card that you received when you came in. And then please pass that to the center. If anyone doesn't have a card or doesn't have a pen, we have these 2 wonderful people who, oh, there's somebody who needs one of those 2 things at least. So, over there, great, thank you very much. A writing implement, I think. Okay. And then once you've written that question on the card, if you would please pass those to the center. And as you will see, what we're attempting to do is to frame our sessions around your questions, both the questions that we received last week and the questions that we received this week. Because we want this to address the things that you're thinking about, wondering about, wanting to know. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine, and thank you for your attention. Okay. Oh, it's Russ? I'm going to turn it over to Russ. My apologies.
How's that? How's that? Okay, good. Now, as long as I keep it right in my mouth, we'll be okay. Next slide, please. One of the this is what the Lodi Committee on Homelessness found when we first started to meet. We understood that there needed to be better communication and coordination among agencies, both throughout the county and in Lodi itself. That we needed to solve the issue of, or even address the issue of homelessness, we needed more financial support from the federal government, the state government, and the county government. City government does not necessarily provide funds for homeless services. Okay, let's get that straight. Probably Steve Schwabauer's made that clear already. It doesn't come from the city, it comes from these other three sources. And we needed some more focused and clear and consistent policies. Next slide. All right, the continuum of care started in a way as the homeless task force, which was organized by Supervisor Kathy Miller. And for about 2 years, she had people come and we met monthly and we shared stories and we shared examples and best practices. And that sort of transitioned into the continuum of care, which was mandated by Housing and Urban Development. And so it became more formalized. Its job is to encourage more coordination among providers and agencies. I'll talk about the strategic plan in a moment. And the membership is open on continuum of care to anybody who's a stakeholder. So if you believe you are, even as an individual or a congregation or whatever organization you might be part of, you can be a member of the continuum of care. However, it is governed by a board of directors that was elected every year by the membership itself. And as a member, you get to participate in that process. So, next slide. One of the first things that HUD said we had to do is to develop a strategic plan. And it was a year-long process. We used a company that does this for all kinds of other continuum of cares throughout the country, actually. There's extensive community involvement, lots of interviews with agencies, with community leaders. There's a lot of group process involved, obviously a lot of review of data that was locally gathered by the company that was doing the work for us. And then part of that was a current assessment about the services already being provided and the level of coordination that existed or did not exist among those agencies. Next slide. All right, so the strategic plan basically created 3 different goals. Am I coming across okay? Can you hear me in the back still? Good. One is to establish a coordinated and engaged regional system of care. Now you'd think, well, why didn't this exist before? It didn't exist before because no one told us we had to do it. And this is the advantage of HUD saying, if you want our money, you need to do this. That's basically what happened. And so we got busy and started doing it. And part of the first goal is to strengthen the crisis system. So when people are in crisis and need some place to stay, that system is working and they're coordinated. We need a system to increase funding in a more coordinated way. One of the things that happened almost at the same time as the strategic planning process is that we actually hired someone to be a coordinator of houses among all the providers and the continuum of care. And that person really does a great job making sure that everyone knows, every agency knows when funding opportunities come available. So there's just not a handful of people who find out and get all the money. Good thing. And the third part of goal 1 is to develop an entry system to assess and support homeless. This means that we know who's out there. People are, there's a system called the Homeless Management Information System, which is a software program where agencies that participate in the continuum of care, if someone comes into their agency, they have to do intake on that person. there's a database on that person, and that person is tracked wherever they particularly go from agency to agency, coordinate, and that's a better way to coordinate services. Okay, I apologize for running but fast, but we got 10 minutes. All right, next slide. And goal number 2, to increase access and reduce barriers. Expanding outreach services out into the community, to find people who need help. That's really, really important, as Catherine knows all too well. And to develop low barrier shelters. Low barrier shelters, think of the 3 Ps. Possessions, partners, and pets. Okay? If you're going to have a low barrier shelter, it means you don't have to necessarily be clean and sober on that very time to get in and to get help. It means there are certain behavior standards that maybe restrict what you can do or who can come in, but remember 3 Ps, pets, possessions, and partners. And again, provide prevention programs. And those with rapid rehousing, getting people rental assistance so that they don't fall into homelessness. A lot of people are only a paycheck or 2 away from finding themselves homeless. So that was part of the program. And so, when all is said and done, if we want to address homelessness, we will largely do it through what's called a housing first model. And that is, get people housed and then take care of them and meet their needs and case manage them. And so, again, permanent housing is the solution. Otherwise, we're just around on a wheel. Okay, we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and until we find people a place to stay and can be safe physically, emotionally, socially, then we can get people the help they need. And again, that's what we call, that's just basically support from case management. And the key phrase to remember here is, where'd it go? Permanent supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing. When people have housing, they're taken care of, they're case managed, depending on whatever their circumstances is, or their circumstances may be. It may be very little that they need, it may be a lot that they need, but they get it taken care of. All right. How am I doing on time, David? I still have plenty of time. Okay. Then. All right. These are questions from last week. Well, back up. Okay. Thank you. How can the End Shelter be more seen by us? One thing you can do if you want to really engage with people who are homeless is to participate in the point in time count. That way you will be meeting people, you'll be interviewing people, taking information from people that will help us build the data we need in order to make case for the funding we need. That's largely what the point in time count is all about. The other thing too, I must say this, people may be homeless or maybe without housing, but it doesn't mean they don't have a home. And just like any of you and me, I will invite people into my home that I want to be in my home. And so it's important to remember these are individuals that deserve our respect and they deserve to have privacy. So that's just common courtesy as far as I'm concerned. Another one. I love this one. How might we as a community encourage more people to entering to health professions, mental health workers, crisis intervention? 2 things. They kind of go together. Provide some incentives for the people to make choices. Sorry, Dan, what do I do? I'm used to walking up and down. So, provide incentives for people going to that kind of work. And the last thing I'd add to is pay them more. Pay them what they're worth. Pay them what they're worth. This is a great question. How is the Boise ruling going to be enforced? The Boise ruling is that we can't take people off the streets. We can't jail people if there are how does this go? If we don't have the shelter beds to keep them in. That's part of the argument for the access center, is we have beds where the police or whoever can take them and house them. That's a great question. How are we going to enforce that? And I think that's a question I'm going to refer to the Rotary Committee on Homelessness and say, let's engage the police in that conversation ahead of the game, not when we're faced with it, but let's get some information from the police department about how it's going to be done. Here's a good one. Is it unwise to take food to areas with lots of homeless people? The answer is absolutely yes. It's not a smart idea. Refer people to those organizations that can provide them with food and that can create, this is extremely important, create a sense of trust. Because I think the last thing any of us would want to do is to bring food to people and then not bring food to people. That doesn't help. Oh, this is a favorite of mine. Can the church agree and commit to a unified plan to provide relief, rehabilitation, and necessary services to those genuinely needing them? I'm not sure churches can agree on much of anything. All right? What I'd say is find what your passion is as a congregation. Find what you want to do. Don't wait on something we've been waiting for millenniums to happen. Okay? It ain't going to happen. Decide what you want to do and commit to it and do it. And I'm out of questions. At least this pile. So I'll hand it over to Catherine. And I'll be around afterwards if you have any questions or follow-up questions from me. I'm more than happy to give it a try. And thanks again for being here.
I can't do the stand up and talk and hold the cards because it wouldn't be pretty. So I'm just going to stand here. If I'm not talking, I can try to do the lecture. Okay. I have to move my tile. Okay, one thing I want to touch on real quick. One of the questions asked about real solutions, and Russ brought up the permanent housing. This last year, we had there was a program called Project Room Key, and it was a COVID program where anybody who was considered high risk for COVID, who was living on the streets, I could get them into a program. I got more people off the streets of Lodi, and over 70% of the people who went into Project Room Key are still in permanent housing. It worked. Okay, we got them off the street. Yeah, thank you. We got them off the street, we got them cleaned up, we got them listened to, we got them on their meds, whatever they needed, and now they're in places of permanent housing. So it does work, and here's our proof. So when someone asks me, I now can say I have proof. So that happened this year. How do the homeless receive medical care? Oh, this is such a great program. I've been working really hard with this team through Community Medical Center, and they have this program called Care Link. Every other Wednesday, I go out with Care Link, and yesterday was one of our days out, and you may see the big, huge van. It has a nurse practitioner in there, 2 MAs in there, and we go to the homeless, and they literally say, so-and-so needs antibiotics, and I go, I'm on it. I'm hitting CVS, I'm picking up the meds, I'm bringing it back. She's teaching them how to take their meds. They're doing wound care. They're checking everybody's blood pressure. okay, we need to adjust your meds, we need to adjust your meds. We are literally keeping people out of the hospital, which reduces costs. That is really critical. And we're showing that we care and that we trust. People are staying cleaner. They're doing better with their medical care. They're feeling better about themselves. They're so proud. They're getting their labs done. Nobody cared before. They didn't get their labs done. But it's accountability. You need to get your labs done. And I follow up with them. Have you done it? Make sure you know how to get there. I'll give you a bus pass. After they met the next day or the following, I follow up, that kind of thing. So they're getting medical care through community medical services. And today we were told, because I just praise them. It's just so wonderful. It's such a great program. Today we were told by the director of that program, because I keep saying, wish they were here every week. He told us this afternoon that he will be working at getting them here every week. He's going to be Wednesdays with the mobile with myself, and on Fridays at the Salvation Army Hope Harbor Friday fairs. So we'll have, something every week where somebody could get medical care. Right now, as you probably would guess, most people hit the ER, very expensive, very ineffective, not the best way to get medical care. So we are addressing that. And I think one of the big plans is with the Access Center having a place where people could at least be assessed every day if there's a medical emergency. So we're not just calling ambulances. So that's one. Let's see, I had a plan. I have a lot of questions here about helping the people. One of the things I wanted to add on to Russ's comment about the food, the other problem with bringing food to a park or to the highway or wherever you see a group of unsheltered people is we're not dealing with the trash. We're providing food without trash service. And so that is one of the number one complaint is human waste. Number two complaint is trash. So if we're going to be bringing food, we need to clean up the trash. I take responsibility for that. So I never want to bring something to someone to eat, as I've been known to bring out hundreds of trash bags. I now have trash bags from Caltrans. They're bright orange ones. You'll see, if you see bright orange Caltrans trash bags, you'll know I was probably there. Caltrans will come pick them up. I also have agreements with the city of Lodi. I come to a camp, I talk to the folks, I give them trash bags, they let me know when they're ready to go, I contact the city, we can get them picked up. They want to have the trash picked up. We just have to organize it and provide the trash bags. So I appreciate when we have the pop-ups at the park, we're going to have breakfast for everyone. We have to do a good job of cleaning up after ourselves. So that's important with the food. That's the other issue, is being human beings, we do have the human waste. One of my biggest things I push on for the Access Center is during the day, people need access to bathrooms. 24/7, they need access to bathrooms. They're just alive, and we all need them. This last weekend, with all the rain and all the water and everything, several people had a lot of trouble with their waste disposal, as you can imagine. And I had more people in crisis on Monday than I've had the Monday after the big rain. First of all, they lost so many of their belongings, their stuff got wiped out. They had several phone calls asking if I still had a copy of their driver's license, if they could get a copy, because the one they had is wet and soaked, all that kind of stuff. But they don't want to live that. They would like to have a bathroom. There was one of the camps that came together, said, we will pay for a porta potty. We will pull our money if we could have a porta potty. And the city said no, because then it would look like we are condoning you living here. But then they're criticized for not using a bathroom, but we don't provide a bathroom. So, the catch-22. So we have to, if we're really going to address the main complaints, we have to provide trash pickup and bathrooms. That's just facts. Lots of questions about mental health services. That is a weak link. And there was very direct questions. Do I think the mentally ill will ever be housed permanently like they used to be? No. My very first job in 1980 was for San Joaquin County Mental Health before the PUF unit was built. I mean, it was on the campus that is now a university. And people lived there. And when that closed down, they went to board and care homes. And they didn't function well. And the board and care homes closed, and they ended up homeless. I worked in a house that housed 13 schizophrenics. It was called Willow House, and it was in the southeast side of Stockton. And that's where they lived. And we managed the best we could. And it's gone. The funding was cut. I would love to see funding like that again. People had food, they had their meds, they had a roof over their shoulder. We kept them off the street. It's above my pay grade, you know. I would love to see it. I would work money, you know. I thought it was a great job, but no, I don't think the direction, providing mental health services like that are cheaper than providing prisons, but it's not the orientation where we're at right now. So it's people who do work way above me have got to figure out how to make those things happen. What we do have in Lodi is services for what you called your minor, your lower level mental illnesses. Over here on Tokay Street, right before Ham, there is a behavioral health clinic here. I take people there to be assessed. They can get assessed. That's how we get people into what's called progressive housing, which is housing that someone who's in behavioral health can qualify for. It's a very laborious process. I have to make sure they make all these appointments, which are quite challenging. If someone has a major mental illness, we cannot service them in Lodi. I have to get them to Stockton, which is almost impossible if I'm asking someone to take the bus and make an appointment on time when they're also hearing voices or feeling paranoid or sure people are after them. It's really hard. I have worked very hard for our community to have a strong relationship with Dennis Buettner and Carlos Mendoza. I've got them on speed dial. They're my two guys when we have someone in crisis. They are here every other week, same day that I have Community Medical Center here. They are also here with me, and we make the rounds. They check in with our people with significant mental illness. We're constantly trying to keep them on track with their meds, with their treatment. It is very challenging to do that for people in an unstable living environment. I mean, I always think about, like, I have trouble remembering taking my own medication when I'm on vacation, you know, because it's not my same routine. You know, you're living outside in an unstable home situation. It's very challenging, and their meds are critical. So yeah, that's really tough. The mental health, from my perspective, being an old social worker who came from that field, is our weak link. I don't have a fix, but I'm just going to keep working one person at a time to find the right programs. We do have programs, and I have been able to get a few people into them, and I'm continuing to work, but it's barely touches it. But I think that's where our money and emphasis, those who control those things, that would be really helpful. I think the person who has the mental health who self-medicates because they're hearing their voices, they're hearing these uncontrollable impulses, doubly challenging, so hard, and we're not set up to deal with them appropriately. We're not meeting their needs in this environment. Part of my emphasis right now is with all the service and the services you're going to learn about, focusing on the people I can help and get them off the street, and then we can take what remaining resources and energy we have and focus on the ones who are so challenging. I was telling people this afternoon, I had calls from 2 different women who are working and on the verge of homelessness. They both have full-time jobs. One of them works for Lodi Unified, doesn't want to leave because she has 2 kids in school. You know, she can't afford her housing. She can't afford housing in Lodi. So I can work with her because I don't have these other issues, and maybe I can help her get into housing, find something stable. That's one less person, you know, and then when we take care of, like our good friend John Ledbetter says, the low-hanging fruit, okay, now let's focus on the really tough cases. I don't want to leave them behind, and that's why we continue to touch bases with them, we continue to follow them and support them, but I can't fix things for them. I can fix something for the person who's lost their job and is living in their car, or the person who's still working and living in their car. I hope that makes sense. These questions about should you approach someone who is obviously mentally, spiritually impaired, that's really challenging. It's kind of like you don't walk up to a strange animal, and just walk up to it. I do my very best when I walk to a camp to announce myself, good morning, hello, I'm here, outreach, that kind of thing. And I read body language. You can tell pretty quickly if someone gives you eye contact or if they, turn their body away, look away from you. Now, is that shame? Are they embarrassed, or are they uncomfortable? I always offer my open person, open self. You know what I mean? Like you approach. My hands are out, for example. I'm not hiding anything. I'm usually offering something, whatever I can offer to them to slowly gain their trust. I give them my name. I give them my card. I say, if you need something, please call me. I will come help you. You slowly build the trust. It takes multiple repetitions to get someone's trust. I'm sure there's a very well-known woman who lives downtown across from Lodi Beer Company. It's taken me a long time to gain her trust. She now calls me. To me, that was a victory. The first time she called asking for help, I was like, yeah, And now we're working on it. I feel like everything I say, I make baby steps and I get really excited about them. I'm not going to get her in any place tomorrow, but we are so much closer than we were last month. We got the money figured out. We're jumping through the hoops. I got the applications done. The other piece of it, as you heard, they're lists. Everything's a list. But when I'm going to have all my ducks in a row, so when her name comes up, she can get in. So it takes time to build those relationships. So would I just walk up to somebody who was obviously maybe hearing voices or talking out loud or, seemed distressed? I would attempt to make eye contact, smile. Are you okay? Can I do anything? If they glare, if they growl, if they, tell you to go away, go away. Just it takes time. So this one, is it rude to ask a person how they got where they are? It all goes about presentation. So currently I'm doing these surveys for United Way, and United Way gave me it's a 8-page survey, and they're asking all these questions, and at some point in the survey you ask, tell me how you got here, what's going on with you. Most people want to tell me, because I'm doing my very, very best not to judge. I want to know how they got here, what I can do, what happened, and they want to talk. They want to be heard. Everybody has a personal story. We all have our origins, where we came from. So it's all in how we ask our questions. Are we really listening to what they have to say, or is there a judgmental piece behind it, where we're coming from? And if somebody asks you for something and you don't feel comfortable giving them money, giving them mostly money, you could please feel it's okay to be uncomfortable and say no. But I will give you, and so we have these things. Now, most homeless people do not like getting these. This is something that the Lodi Committee on Homelessness produces. It has all the resources and services. I don't just hand these out. There's a bunch in the back. You can take them. And I have hundreds of these if you want some. But what I do is I look in here and I say, well, here's a place that does blah, blah, blah. here, it looks like you can get a meal over here. Have you ever heard of Grace and Mercy, or have you been to Hope Harbor for dinner, or, these kind of things? And then I circle it, and on the back is a map, and I'll draw a map. Now, I don't expect you to go to that extent, but just having awareness of what's available might help you when somebody asks for something, say, I think there's a place where you can get that. There's a program, there's, services. And if they just want money, yeah, you're not under any obligation to give money. I think there's a lot of stories about how people give, they'll go buy a meal and bring someone a meal. Once again, my whole thing about that is the trash. So, I always carry trash bags too, we have to clean it up, because that's just such a big problem for all the community there. Where am I at on time? Okay. How does the community deal with meth use? Meth use is such a problem, and it's so horribly addicting. Once again, one of the biggest problems we have in San Joaquin County is there's no place to detox. We have no detox clinics in this county. 0. That is huge. To get into a program, you need to be clean for 3 days. I've had more people on the streets than I can tell me, I can't get clean out here. Especially when it's cold and it's windy and it's rainy and it's everything else, whatever, I can't get clean out here. They'll get so far, and then the withdrawal hurts, and they don't have the support, and they give in. Meth is a horribly, horribly addicting drug. And now we have fentanyl, and it's causing all sorts of problems. For those of you who got to hear Johnny last week, you heard him say it took 15 years. And this is a great Lodi kid, great family, was in college, the whole bit. It took him 15 years. And it was because he got his ultimatum. He made some big mistakes, and he made that decision to get clean. And now he walks the walk. He's my hero. But, yeah.
You want to do your PowerPoint?
Oh. I guess so. Tell me what's on the PowerPoint. Can you hear me? Okay, what's on the PowerPoint? Oh, the service provider, yes. Is it time? Yes, okay, I'll start doing that. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, so which one's first? So, okay. Tonight, we've invited several of our service providers here, but they are not the only service providers, but they are really instrumental in our community. I'm going to start with Showered with Love. So every Monday at Gravity Church, almost every Monday at Gravity Church, which is on Central, just south of Tokay, Showered with Love is there. They have a 3-stall mobile bus with shaving stations on the outside. They're here on Mondays in Lodi, but they're in Stockton on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They are so amazing. They provide a hot shower. They give everybody the clean underwear, the clean socks. They get love. They get attention. They're known by name. They're just treated like just wonderful human people. It's a safe and dignified shower experience. And today is their 2-year anniversary. And as of today, at the end of today, they had provided 6,102 showers, which I think that's amazing. So along with Showered with Love, in my mind it's like this little campus every Monday morning. We have the Faith Community Clothing Ministry, and with Tammy Watson there. And Faith Community Clothing Ministry was started by Pastor Dan Hopkins of the Faith Community Church. Pastor Dan had this vision to go out into Lodi community to provide clothing to anyone in need. Tammy has been boots on the ground for about 2 years now, And she provides everybody with this really personalized, dignified opportunity to find clothes that fits their body. Really, well, what do you feel comfortable in? I literally hear her talk about people, what works for you? Will this fit you? And then she's so personal. She'll say, like, God, that color looks so good on you. And you can just see the smile. So Tammy's there. And then a third partner who's not here tonight is His Way Church, and they provide a hot meal. So you get your clean clothes, you get your nice hot shower, and you get something to eat, and then you get me, and you're a captured audience. And I had a guest this week from our audience, came and saw what I did. You guys wave. They came, and I really appreciate it, and I think they're going to come help me again. But they set me up at a little table, and I have chairs, and people come, and I do an intake. And I literally ask, okay, how did you get here? What are you going to do? What do you want to do? And we work through the steps, and I enroll people in whole person care, or I get them on progressive housing lists, or I, get them connected to the doctor's appointments, or whatever it takes. But it's such a great environment. I do more good work in one morning there than I can do out in a lot of different camps because of all the services that work together. So you'll have an opportunity to meet Showered with Love and Clothing Ministry tonight. Lodi House is here. Lodi House is a program for women and children. They've been in our community since 2000. And this is a structured, secure, safe environment for women and children. This is such a valuable program because it takes women who might have never had the opportunity how to really be a good parent. They might not have had the models. They, didn't learn how to be the mom, or they may have had their own addiction issues. They may have had their own housing struggles. Now they're in an environment where they are taught, many for the very first time, how to make a budget, how to make a shopping list, how to plan meals. These basic things you would hope you would learn, but they never got. So now they're learning them. It's never too late. This is a very special program. I really champion them. And they are closing on they have what they call transitional housing. So after they've been in the program, they can then move to an apartment so they can continue with the supportive environment. They have an enrichment center that teaches classes, offers them all the next higher level, how to do their resume, everything. They are required to work. They are required to participate in the house programs, all of that. So they're purchasing another duplex to expand the number of transitional housing, which means more women can get into the program, get into transitional, keep going. So it's very positive. Grace and Mercy is here. This is Cheryl Francis, and the goal of Grace and Mercy is to ensure that no one goes hungry. One of the things you need to know about Cheryl is she may be providing a warm, hot meal to the unsheltered every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but this woman does so much more. When the Great Plates program that was COVID funded ended, Cheryl was like, well, these people still need to eat. She took it on. She provides hundreds, if not thousands, of meals every month. She provides food boxes to the seniors. She calls herself a food broker. She's a food broker. She is the woman getting the food out to the people who need it. But my personal story about Cheryl Francis was last year when we had a little COVID incident at Hope Harbor, who provides meals in the evening, and they couldn't provide. We had that 10-day period there where they had to shut down so everybody could get well. Cheryl didn't even hesitate. She opened up her kitchen to us, all these volunteers who had no idea how to cook for a bunch of people, and we moved in, and every night we cooked dinner in her kitchen, and we were able to still provide the people who would normally go to Hope Harbor for dinner a meal that night. So very generous, very sharing, and Cheryl's here, and you can learn all about her programs. She, on the average, is about 400 meals a month to our unsheltered. And Salvation Army Hope Harbor, they are our anchor. They are the largest shelter in Lodi, and even though it is not a low-barrier shelter, it is still a shelter. You do have to test clean. You cannot have pets. You can't have all your possessions, but it is still a bed in the night to stay. They offer a meal. You can get a hot meal there. There's opportunities for showers, especially on Fridays. They offer the programs. People get in there, they get a place, they learn about the programs that Hope Harbor has, their culinary arts programs, there are different programs that they offer. It's, we were joking, it's like a gateway. You talk about you have your gateway drugs. Well, this is a gateway to housing. It's a first step in. So they are our anchor. We use them as our home base for so many things. And there's so many more programs that Salvation Army provides than just the shelter. But when it comes to this stuff, they're our key there. And as you know, the bell ringing season is starting, so their big need is bell ringers. This is one of their biggest fundraisers. And so there's all these little flyers out there. It's a 2-hour shift. It's actually pretty fun, especially if you take the one at the post office. I highly recommend the post office. It's so much fun. And you open the door for people, and they're so happy to see you, and it's like, gosh, this is great. I really enjoy that one. So, but the services from Hope Harbor, without them, I don't even know where we would be when it comes to shelters. So that's our big one. The last one for the service providers is the point in time, is Lodi Committee on Homelessness, the San Joaquin Continuum of Care, point in time. That is this January. The reason we asked all these people to come is because so many people ask questions about how can I help? And not everybody can go trompsing into the camps. I get that. Some people just want to provide want to make a financial donation or bring socks. We can use that. But if you want to get to know people in an environment where you would have support, you wouldn't be alone, you would be going out, you'd be getting, and doing these point-in-time questionnaires, these surveys are really critical. So that's January 26th. And we are still working on all the details, but I do have a couple of sign-up sheets if this interests you. And if you don't want to go out to the camps, you just we're going to have a home base where people can come, and we're going to have, jeans and, food and socks, and, we're going to have other stuff to donate. But the point in time is so critical, because without that number, we cannot tell people how many unsheltered we have. And that is where the funding comes in. You got to have the number. And as Russ was talking about the HMIMS, that's the system, that doesn't count the people who are under the bridge or on the side of the freeway. That only counts the people in a shelter. So we need to go out and count. We need to count the people in their cards. We need to know those numbers. So that is why we do the point in time. We do it every other year. Obviously, last year was canceled. We did it, the last one was 2019. That is why we have our number of 139, which we know is grossly under, significantly. I look at the numbers from 2017 and how they jumped to 2019, it almost doubled. So I don't want to make that kind of prediction that it's going to do that again, but I can tell you that I operate personally off a list of about 200 here in town. So that's what I'm working off of. I've got some inside information who thinks it's even higher. But so those are our guests tonight. For anybody who would like to learn more about how they can volunteer, how they can support these programs, how they can be of an asset, which so many of your questions was about, everything from ringing bells to writing checks. I know some of our providers actually bought their squares. That's what I call it, where you donate. So being proactive. Let's see. Should I go back to the questions here? I got a few more minutes? Okay. All right. I would love to make sure I need a lot of time to talk to the providers too. So 5 minutes in? Okay. All right. You got one? You want to take it? You stop talking for a minute?
great question. Why can't some of the laws or policies that come into existence in the last 10 to 20 years, which are known to have increased homelessness, be reversed? This speaks to the issue of public policy. Like Catherine said, we're not going to build state hospitals again. The Stockton Developmental Center is not going to reopen again to house people with severe mental health issues. But there is an issue that we are going to have to confront as a community and as a society, and that is affordable housing. Eventually, if we make this system work, where people go to shelters, to permanent supportive housing, to and move out of the homeless situation, eventually they have to find a place where they can afford to live. And our community is woefully behind in creating enough affordable housing. So if you're thinking about what can be done in the future, there's such a thing called a general plan that cities have to approve. And they're developed by city staff with input from the community. And they have different elements to that general plan. And one is a housing element. And I would recommend that if you can find ways to hold our city council members accountable for a housing element that includes the development of affordable homes or affordable apartments. Without that, we are not going to really solve this problem in the long term. So, while I don't think we can necessarily go back and reverse anything that's happened in the past, we have an opportunity right here in our own city to affect what kinds of affordable housing we can have in the future.
I just wanted to make sure. Did you guys all know that Crane's Landing, right over here on the other side of Target, that's affordable housing? Because one of the things I hear and read on social media, and it's asked of me quite often, well, it's all going to be trashed. It's just going to look terrible. And it doesn't. Those are beautiful. That's affordable housing. Just because something is for lower income doesn't mean it's going to get trashed. It's going to look terrible. So I love affordable housing. I think it's really, really valuable. So that's my pitch for why it's very valuable. It's really important for every community for people to have safe housing. I think what I'd like to do is, I think I've hit on the majority of kind of the themes. I know there's a ton here. If I have not answered your question in particular and you want to come talk to me, please do. I'm happy to discuss this. It's such a complicated, difficult. I do believe in accountability. There were several questions about how to hold people accountable. I have some ideas myself, and I do set my own boundaries with people. And I'm happy to talk about that, but it's a more than just a 1-minute answer, if that makes sense. So, well, I'm sure many of you were parents. You understood accountability with your children. You know, you have to set those limits. So, it's kind of along those lines. So, yeah, there's work to do, and I think we can do it. I think people can be held accountable. So, I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. Oh, so this is a video that the city of Lodi made. Oh gosh, well, it was this spring. It was this spring we made this video. And it was when we were trying to understand why we were working towards an access center, what the goal was and what it meant. And this was the educational video that we wanted to share with people that they made. So this is it.
George, Jeff, and Robert are all stellar employees in the Lodi area. They're thrilled to have employment and thankful to be contributing to the Lodi economy. But not too long ago, these three men were among the estimated 150 people living on Lodi streets, in parks, along rivers, or under bridges. Their lives so tattered the idea of having good jobs was unthinkable. Each Each of them eventually made their way to the Salvation Army and took advantage of their rehab program. Today, George is in charge of quality assurance at Lodi Iron Works. He counts this job as one of his blessings.
It's built my self-worth back up. They've given me responsibility pretty quick, and that feels pretty good to have somebody rely on you. Whereas a couple years ago, nobody could take a word I said as truth.
Indeed, George's past is a far cry from his life today.
I was married, and through the alcohol abuse, which led to cocaine abuse, I wasn't a functional husband anymore. And so I was essentially asked to leave my house. I didn't want to drink, but at a certain point I couldn't control it.
28-year-old Robert is an employee at Lodi's Merit Woodwork. Like George, his life was in shambles, a drug addict, an alcoholic, homeless for 6 years on the streets of Lodi.
Out there, it's a 24-hour job. You gotta worry about your water, or your living amenities, or where you're gonna get the next meal, or in my case, the next fix. I get moments of peace nowadays, and I'm grateful for that.
But those moments of peace only came after an arrest.
I wound up going to jail, and I got a moment of clarity inside jail, and I realized I didn't want to be the person I've been being. I wasn't raised to live like that.
Jeff is another valuable employee at Lodi Iron Works following years of substance abuse and homelessness.
When you're in that low part of your life, like I was, it's hard to even think that you could change your life. It doesn't seem possible.
Yet, each of these three men, in their own way, did change their lives through Lodi's Salvation Army Recovery Program. But it wasn't simply by walking through the door. They had to be clean first.
Here in Lodi, we're the only shelter. So I've seen over the years a lot of people come that we hope to get into our program, but they just can't get over that hump of getting off that drugs and alcohol when they're out there unsheltered in the elements. What the Salvation Army offers is wonderful, but you have to be clean and sober to stay here. You have to pass a breathalyzer and a drug test.
For those who can make it through the door, under these rules, they have the chance to turn their lives around, find work, sobriety, and peace. But for so many, that first hurdle is just too high. And so they continue on the streets of Lodi, lost in drug addiction, mental illness, or past trauma. They continue to spiral downward, moving from one spot to another, getting the chance to shower and a change of clothes once a week at Salvation Army. Simply surviving day to day.
When I was running around on the streets out here, I would come in the Salvation Army often, and they help provide for some of my basic human needs. Like it was to come in and eat real quick and leave, or to get some clothes and a shower and leave. And one of the things that held me back was you've got to give a clean drug test, and I wasn't very capable of giving those. Like I said, I had to go to jail first.
And this is why the city of Lodi is hoping to build a low-barrier access center shelter. It would welcome the rest of the city's unsheltered population, those who can't achieve sobriety by themselves or see clearly enough to seek help. It's a concept fully supported by the Salvation Army.
The whole purpose of the Access Center is to have wraparound services for those in need. So what I mean by that is, we're going to have case managers, you'll have connections with behavioral health, HSA, Central Valley Housing. So the hand up, not a handout motto is going to really take effect with the Access Center. For those that just want to come and lay your head, you're going to be given a certain amount of time. For those that want to come and better themselves and work with a case manager to gain employment, go back to school, to work with Central Valley Housing, then it'll be a tiered system to where they'll be given different levels to the shelter. I believe every human being is salvageable.
John is speaking from experience. It's likely one of the reasons he's so successful helping others work through the process of recovery. He knows what can happen with just a few bad choices.
At the age of 27, I got introduced to smoking methamphetamines. And to make a long story short, I went from making $80,000 a year at the age of 27 and having a 8-year career to at the age of 30 having nothing. I lost my way, my family, my sanity, my freedom. And my addiction took me to looking at a 12-year prison sentence.
And at that time, the judge said that I have one option for you. You can either go to program or you can go to prison. And of course, I chose program. I just celebrated 20 years of recovery in August. I've been working for the Salvation Army, giving back to the community for the last 10 years, and it's very rewarding.
I slept on the sidewalk over here in the fenced-off area. Here in Lawrence Park, I slept on the grass. I slept on the stairs on the other street. I slept over here by the movie theater, at the bus station. I got into using heroin. I smoked it one time, and after that I shot it up and I fell in love with it. And that's how I was on it for 10 years.
At 32 years old, Stephanie, a Lodi High graduate, is finally clean. But it's been a long road. Had she been able to find shelter and services in a low-barrier access center, she could have saved herself and her family a lot of misery and a lot of years on the streets.
I sold my soul for something that I couldn't get off of. The withdrawals are basically unbearable, and you want it every day. I just couldn't give it up. It's like a demon inside you that you just can't feed. I would actually see other people, normal people, walking around, and I wanted that so bad, but I just couldn't get there. But I'm very envious of normal people. I wanted that, but I don't know, I couldn't stop.
For Stephanie, it was an arrest that would send her to prison or drug rehab. She chose rehab, and it worked.
It brings me tears. Very thankful.
Stephanie also wants to see a low-barrier access center shelter in Lodi so others could have the same opportunity at a new life that she now has.
My heart bleeds for them because I know what it's like. You don't want to be homeless, but you don't know how to get out of it. And so to cope with it, you use more and more drugs to numb your pain and to numb your sorrow and your sadness. And you feel like there's no way out, but I've been in that dark, deep tunnel. And I can't describe it to you, but despair and heartache, and I'm just so grateful to not be there anymore.
When on the streets, even the simplest steps out of homelessness can be insurmountable, like the paperwork needed to apply for services, documents that have likely been lost along with the roof overhead. Catherine, a volunteer social worker, is currently filling that gap. She goes out into the community nearly every day with a laptop, a printer, and a charging station for cell phones. There's always a line of unsheltered people seeking her help, looking for a way out. Today, she's making a difference in Billy's life.
There are probably half a dozen different housing programs, and you need to figure out which one's the right one for the right person. You need to have a photo ID. You need to have your Social Security card. You need to have your medical card. If you're missing any of those pieces, everything comes to a screeching halt. I don't know if you've tried to call Social Security, but you are literally on hold for 30 minutes. And we will sit here at the table on hold for 30 minutes. The young Billy, we got his benefits transferred because we were able to use my phone, kept it charged. He is now eligible for all services in San Joaquin County. He was not eligible before.
With an access center, these very basic, very necessary services would be provided. It's one more step toward helping people put their lives back together, get off the streets, and out of homelessness.
The main goal is hopefully to get that person to where they're a productive member of society, paying taxes, working, reunited with their family, or getting a second, third, fourth chance, whatever the case may be.
While getting off the streets is a major accomplishment, staying off the streets is the key to any community solving its homeless problem. Lodi is fortunate to have numerous businesses not only willing but anxious to hire and train people like George, Jeff, and Robert. Because of these businesses, hundreds of people whose futures seemed hopeless are experiencing long-term success.
We take a chance as employers all the time. We are taking the chance to see when we hire somebody to see if it's going to work out in the long run. And with the homeless, when we're hiring the homeless, it's the same situation. Except for 95% of the time, there's a gratefulness and a dedication and a loyalty that is almost immediate because they're so grateful to be given that opportunity. And I got to tell you, they step up and they hit a home run for us. That's been our experience.
When I first hired someone for the Salvation Army, I was really impressed with the work ethic I saw and how much they wanted the job, and they weren't just showing up for the paycheck, but just to be a part of something. It just kind of helps bring even a greater purpose to our work here as well, because we're not just building parts, we're also helping be a part of building people.
I'm proud that I work for a company that, can help out the community. If more and more companies can help out like we do, well, I think we would have less homeless people on the street and help try to create a solution to the problem.
When the community comes together and supports each other, we get positive employees into the workforce, successful businesses, healthier citizens. Our community becomes stronger, richer, more compassionate, and productive.
I got purpose every day, every get up, and I appreciate that and enjoy that.
It's awesome. Yeah, I gotta be a father today. I gotta be a son to my mother and father. I'm comfortable in my own skin today.
One of the things I'm the happiest about is I have a daughter that's 2.5. She'll never have to see me drunk. And 2 years ago I couldn't say that. Now that she can start to remember things, she's always going to remember me as her dad, not be embarrassed.
With the Access Center and the full support of the community, the people that are going to be involved with it are people that are experts in each and every one of their fields. And when we all come together, there's nothing that we can't overcome.
Every life is worth saving, though, in my opinion, and you don't know what good can come out of someone's life if you help them.
That, let's see. How am I doing on time? Oh, we're right on time. Sorry. So I would like to invite you all to visit with our service providers. They're set up in the back, and pick up your bell ringing card and visit the booths and sign up to do the point in time or whatever you want. And if you have other questions, just let us know. Oh, yes, and please come back next week, please, one more time. And next week, I'm really excited. Next week's going to be the future, right? Where we're going. So, yeah, please come back.
Tears come streaming down your face when you lose something you can't replace, when you love someone but it goes to waste. Could it be worse?